In 2024, a bold vision was set in motion to cultivate a culture of evangelism across Africa's churches, where every disciple makes a disciple. The Africa Church Evangelism Institute, launched in partnership with the Billy Graham Center at Wheaton College, set out to transform how churches reach their communities.
This is where it started, at ACEI St. Alban Makadara. When I joined this church as the priest in charge, it had less than 100 congregations. I tried to do a lot of mission work, crusades.
African Church Evangelism Institute program is a game changer to church in Africa and to us, church leaders. And because we have been a church that lives on programs when it comes to evangelism.
The ACEI program has been a game changer, and in looking at evangelism and actually practicing it, I must admit that learning more from the ACEI Institute has helped me become more forthright and very keen on ensuring that I actually practice evangelism every day.
Previously, evangelism and missions was like departmentalized. It was a department in the church. We knew there's a department whose responsibility is to organize, coordinate, and do evangelism. And as duty calls, whenever they call us on board, we would support them to do it.
The heartbeat of ACEI is simple yet profound: to equip pastors and church leaders with practical tools for relational evangelism.
I was so fiery when it comes to evangelism. Though it was programmed, but I was fiery. The fire was there. And then the titles came. The pastor, the reverend, the bishop now. And with these titles, you are unapproachable. You become unapproachable. But now here comes ACEI, revitalizes me, reawakens me, that with intentionality of lifestyle. Because that title is not written here, Bishop. You are not, when you are in public transport, the title is not written there. When you are buying something in the shop, the title is not written there. And so I was awakened that, title aside, you can reach to anyone.
Through the Bless Your Francis model, believers are mobilized to reach their friends, relatives, acquaintances, neighbors, colleagues, enemies, and strangers, not just occasionally, but as a lifestyle.
Well, at work, I have targets, I set targets, and I say it to myself, well, in God's work, I should also be able to specifically set achievable targets and become accountable. And I trusted the Lord that this year, at least I'll share the gospel with 52 people. That is one person per week, every week. And I thought it was achievable because, if you're intentional about it, it's going to happen. And it was very interesting just looking at the performance by the 7th month of the year. By the grace of God, I have been able to share the gospel with 46 people out of the 52. So my target has just about 6 to go. And out of the 46, I'm so glad to report that 21, I led 21 to the Lord. And I actually record them on my diary for this year. I take their names and I take their numbers.
This program makes every member of the church an evangelist. It awakens that truth that actually you get born again to be a witness, and not occasionally, to be an all-round witness.
Across Kenya, Rwanda, Ghana, and beyond, churches are reporting remarkable growth, not just in number, but in depth. Leaders are seeing congregations shift from passive attendance to active ministry. Evangelism is no longer seasonal, it is becoming the culture.
I remember us learning that the people, a leader would model the change that he wants to see in his local church. So I began to live it first. I began to share testimonies of my personal life, of how I'm seeing Christ and encountering people through my intentional effort to reach out and to witness. And second, I began to see some people begin to do it as I challenged them to do it at a personal level. Then I began to invite people to share testimonies of the experiences they are having when they step out there. And that was now in 2024. By beginning of 2025, the fire and caught up within the church.
Since last year, the church has grown. Mm-hmm. And myself, I noticed that it's really not good not to give chance to people in the church.
From urban centers to rural communities, the ripple effect is undeniable. Youth and women are stepping into leadership. Churches are engaging their Francis networks with renewed purpose, and the gospel is reaching places once thought unreachable.
2 weeks ago, my son came from school and told me, "Dad, you know what? I led 4 of my students, my classmates, to the Lord."
Wow.
And you know, we were with my wife in the kitchen. We turned to him and they're like, 4?
We still do our open-air fellowships. We still do our planned door-to-door. But how I tried to change the perspective of this church was through myself being a role model. As I walk to visit someone, a neighbor, or to pray with a neighbor outside, as I meet people on the streets, I stop, I greet them, I find out what they do, I invite them in the church. And now people began understanding that this is the way to go. And also the issue of incorporating people for a meal is something I kept on challenging people. You don't need to have money. Just call your neighbor in the plot where you stay and organize a cup of tea and just have story. Begin with business. Talk about life stories and then draw them closer to God.
I'm eternally grateful to the people who thought that these two would equally work in Africa. There's someone who had the burden to reach out to us in Africa and extend this hand of empowerment towards us, and to the people who just selected the first call to come on board, people who sacrifice their finances, because I also know to develop this tool to push this agenda forward, to reach us as pastors and many others, takes a bit of resources, and I must really thank those who gave and donated to have this. I still remember personally encountering Pastor Jenkins, who came and preached in our church and shared how God has used this tool to bring such a reawakening of evangelism in their church. And I must, on behalf of the rest of the first cohort in Africa, say a big thank you. And we trust the Lord that God, with this partnership, we will be able to reach out to more people.
1 year later, the Africa Church Evangelism Institute is more than a program. It is a movement of churches reclaiming their evangelistic mandate, a movement of believers living out the gospel in everyday relationships, and a movement that is just getting started. Because when every disciple makes a disciple, the church becomes unstoppable.